Hey, welcome to Bada Boom. I'm Chris. And as things come out that people universally love, I think it's always a great time to bring on my our resident hater, Mike, to talk about it and to discuss what he thinks about it because I think he brings things down to earth. So let's talk about the GTA 6 trailer, which has been 10 years in the making. They had to release it early because of a leak, which this game has been plagued by. But what did you think of the trailer, Mike?
Well, my first impression right off the bat as I was watching it was that I felt that it looked incredibly fake. And as I continued watching it, I realized that they went absolutely insane with the post processing in this game. It's super hazy, it's super blurry. Um it's very clear that they wanted like a very cinematic look to the trailer, which is understandable. I mean, that's kind of the point of the trailer. But I only really kind of got a good idea of the quality of like the textures and just the graphics overall after like watching it the second and third time. So I guess it's not that much of an issue because people are going to be watching this trailer over and over again for the next few years anyway. So they'll kind of get used to the look of the game. But I'm wondering if the game is actually going to look like this because we've already seen what the game looks like when when that gameplay leak happened. I think it was around a year ago when they showed that robbery in progress in the I think it was a restaurant, and it looked pretty much like the same way that GTA 5 looks. It looked better, obviously, but you could kind of tell that it's like the same engine more or less. It's kind of like that same visual quality, but this looks completely different than GTA 5. GTA 5 has like very realistic grounded lighting, and this is just completely blown out, overexposed. If you go to the 19-second mark of the trailer, you can really see what I'm talking about, especially with like the volumetric lighting. Like everything is just so hazy, and particularly at 19, when you look at that shot, it really looks like Red Dead Redemption 2, which is the closest game we've got to this one in terms of the graphics. And so it definitely looks a lot more like RDR2 than GTA 5, and that's understandable considering that RDR2 is a lot closer to the release of this game than GTA 5 will be. But I personally am not a fan of when a game has like this much post processing, precisely because it just makes it look fake. It doesn't, like, you can't, like, when you look at the character models, their skin looks very glossy, like almost like almost too reflective. Skin is a diffuse surface. When light hits your skin, it doesn't bounce off of it like a mirror. It kind of like just goes into it. And here it just looks like, if you look at the skin of any of the characters, it just doesn't look very realistic, quote unquote. But I suppose that's not much of an issue when you're going for kind of a stylized look anyway, which these games have always had. Like, even though they kind of sort of go for photorealism, there's always a bit of like a stylized look to it, and that's definitely what they're going for here. In terms of showing off the look of the game, and this is probably what the game is going to look like. I don't think that these are any like pre-rendered sequences. This is most likely, everything here is real time, and it kind of looks real time, especially for this gen of consoles. But I could see them kind of dialing down the post processing effects, or at least giving you an option to tone them down, to make the game have kind of more realistic lighting. Because if you go, for example, to 6 seconds into the trailer, and we're just looking at this fence and the sky, it is so violet that it just, lighting never really looks like this in real life. So it's obviously they're going for a very stylized look. And I don't know, maybe depending on the reaction the trailer has, they might change it, they might leave it the same, they might give you the option to change it. So we'll see what happens with that as time goes on. And I would also say I'm probably going to bet on the fact that once they release like a true to life gameplay trailer, it's not going to look as much like this as this particular trailer. Once we get into the gameplay, they're probably going to dial down the like the overexposure and all that stuff.
Yeah, and we have 2 years. I think the big part of the trailer is that it says 2025. So you have 2 years of people reacting, And anytime someone kind of puts out a release window, I just add 6 months to a year to that. So I say we're 2 years and a half to 3 years away from this game coming out. And, just based on sort of what they showed and sort of what you were talking about, it looks like they're making like Florida Man, the movie,
Oh yeah,
or the game,
definitely.
sorry. So I think some of the choices, and weirdly enough, it looks more because of the setting and sort of how things have changed. Like when they made the last game that was set in Vice City, sort of the most popular form of media that connected to Miami were, the Bad Boys movies, Scarface, so this very like luxe environment. And now because of the internet and what Florida's become in that time, it looks like this one is definitely more social media focused and focused on sort of the ridiculousness of Florida. So I think that's some of the things you're talking about, definitely a creative choice. And I'm sure they'll probably give you an option to dial it down. And part of why I think they've released it at this point, one, financially, like I think investors are like, hey, Take Two, release the next one. And also just the fact that this game has been plagued by leaks. You talked about that gameplay reveal, which wasn't a reveal, it was a leak. And just a couple days ago, it seemed like one Rockstar employee's kid was just like posting on TikTok like some environments and stuff like that. And then even this trailer, like it leaked, so they had to put it out early. So it seems like this game is sort of, it's been revealed a little bit earlier than maybe they wanted to. So we'll see what it looks like when it comes to the gameplay and stuff. And just based on the trailer, it looks like, you're getting a female protagonist, but there's going to be like a Bonnie and Clyde vibe to it. You have that character, and then if you look at the poster, it's her and her boyfriend. So I wonder if you'll probably be able to play both. Obviously, there'll be a bunch of customization and stuff like that. But based on sort of the games that have even come out recently, like, Cyberpunk, which is kind of like the closest to what this is, I think the finished product and sort of what will look like even after it comes out is going to be completely different than what we saw in the trailer.
Well, geez, Rockstar is known for their bull shots. I mean, if you go back and historically watch their trailers, their gameplay trailers, they're tuned up a little bit. They don't look nearly as good as the game does. So there's definitely going to be a bit of that, but I would say that they get close enough, so you kind of get a general idea of what the game is going to look like from the trailers. It's not as bad as what Ubisoft can do sometimes. If you look back at their history with their trailers and
Oh,
screenshots and
Ubisoft,
whatnot.
they'll release a shit trailer too. Did they ever release that Prince of Persia? You remember when they did that remake trailer and it was like it looked worse than the actual like PS2 Prince of Persia? I wonder if they
Yeah, yeah.
canceled that if that ever came out. I was actually, before they revealed the trailer to it, I was pretty excited about that, but haven't heard a
Yeah,
thing
if they
since.
know it's good for them, they definitely would have canceled that because that did look
Yeah.
pretty bad.
Yeah.
But in terms of this, I would say, because you mentioned the social media aspect of it, and that is actually, because I'm kind of scrubbing through the trailer as I talk about it. I do notice that a lot of the stuff is kind of like Instagram esque,
Yeah.
where
And
they're doing like
TikTok
little
and
things.
all that. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So definitely the look of it, because when you look at pictures or videos on Instagram, they also have loads of post processing. People put a
Yeah.
lot of like color filters and whatnot. So that could be very much why the trailer looks like that. It is just a straight up artistic choice to make it seem like reality is like almost has like an Instagram filter on it.
Yeah.
So that's now that you mentioned that, I definitely can see that that's kind of what they were going for with this. I'm not personally a fan of it because I like natural lighting. I like
Yeah.
realistic lighting in my games, but it's very clear that they went for a very stylized look, and we'll see what it looks like in the forthcoming trailers. Because honestly, it does actually sometimes have an effect on gameplay, because when an image is so overexposed like that, it's actually difficult to see detail in the environment. So in a shooter game like this, where you're where you have to make precise shots, it can sometimes be difficult to see enemies against the background because it's so blown out. So I'm really curious to see what like actual gameplay looks like, and how much has changed, because we'll also be able to compare it to the footage that leaked. So it'll be interesting to see how much work they've done on it, and how the look of the game has evolved over the years. So it'll be interesting to compare it to the leak when we get like official gameplay footage as well.
Yeah, and I mean, I think most people expect like sort of like this scenic trailer. I was actually surprised that they were able to show a lot of characters, tease some of the story, and just I think Vice City. I mean, it came out years ago, but like Miami, in my mind, is like the places you want to go is relatively small. But in this trailer, you see sort of like this big. It almost took me a minute to realize it was gonna. I mean, outside of the Florida like man kind of things they were showing, I was like, is this Vice City? Because it kind of looks like speaking to some of the lighting you were talking about, but also just how big the map looked and sort of what they were showing. I was like, is this Florida? Is this San Andreas? Like outside of the beaches? So I am interested to see like what the map is going to look like. Are you able to travel to different areas? And in terms of like Rockstar games, like the Red Dead series is probably 1 and 2 are my favorite games of all time. For you, what would you want to see in this one, especially considering GTA 5 was the biggest game ever and the biggest media property of all time, made $1 billion in 3 days? What would you want to see in it?
Well, the one thing that was kind of missing for me in GTA 5 was the kind of structured narrative of the previous games, because there are three characters in GTA 5. There's it's a little too busy for my
Yeah,
liking, the story. And here it seems to be they're focusing on two characters, and it's they have like a very strong relationship with each other from what we see in the
mhm,
trailer. So I think that'll be a little bit more interesting than the story we got in GTA 5, where these people were pretty much strangers with each other. Like, I
yeah,
know Mike and Trevor had a lot of history, but they didn't see each other for a really long time, and they were always at each other's throats. They were pretty much always constantly arguing with each other. So it'll be interesting to see like a basically like a love relationship, because they're obviously a couple. So it'll be interesting because we've never actually had that in a GTA game, where obviously we've had characters who've had relationships with side characters in the cast, but we've never had a game that focuses on a relationship between two characters that are likely going to be playable between each other, because you'll be able to switch between them. So that'll definitely be an interesting aspect of it. And in terms of what I would want to see, is to just kind of have a return to the classic kind of GTA gameplay. I know they've probably want GTA Online to be front and center for this one as well, and I know that's definitely what they're going to be focused on, because that's the big money maker.
listen, they got
But
to pay the bills, take two those shareholders, man.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's going to be difficult to follow up the success of GTA 5, but I definitely think they're going to be focusing a lot more on GTA Online than the single player experience. But I hope that they focus on it enough to where we get a great experience, regardless of how much time they put into the online component.
Yeah, I think Rockstar does like obviously they put a lot into the online and stuff, but I think because of that, hopefully there's a little bit of a delay between the story element, the main game, and the online, just so that they could be kind of separate experiences. Just like the first game, just like Red Dead 2, just so that it doesn't become one of those things where it's clear they're pushing a live service and it sort of tarnishes the brand, as we've seen with a lot of great game studios, but Rockstar does a pretty good job of separating those two experiences. But yeah, I'm excited. This is something that Vice City is one of my favorite Grand Theft Autos. To kind of revisit that is going to be really exciting, and sort of see Rockstar play around, like getting in their worlds. They're great. They're great at what they do. There's a reason they spend so much time doing this, even though still probably people spent 23-hour days making this game for 12 years. um, they're just good at what they do, and that's why people are excited. So people are excited when I mean, I haven't looked at the online like chatter too much, but just straight excitement, without people complaining about a female protagonist. I'm sure that's going to come in the coming days, when people have to kind of get on their grift and stuff like that. But it is good to see people genuinely all excited for one thing, for once, where we don't have to argue. So thank you, Mike. As always, it's great talking to you about these things, because I'm always fascinated with your perspective. I did not even think about all those lighting things until you brought it up. So thank you for being a nitpicker and a hater. It really sort of
You're welcome.
challenges me to think like, all right, like I got to think of something that I didn't really like too. So I appreciate you, and thank you guys for listening. And with that, bada
Bada
boom.
boom.